A broke waitress smiled at the most dangerous man in Baltimore, and in that single moment, she became the one weakness his enemies could use against him. Rain hammered the windows of the lantern as Emma Reed stood alone behind the counter counting the last few dollars from another exhausting night. She was used to being overlooked, underpaid, and one missed paycheck away from losing everything. But when 3 armed men locked the door and whispered Dominic Vale's name, her ordinary life ended. This is not just a story about forbidden love. It is about power, guilt, survival, and whether a man built by violence can become worthy of the woman who sees the human being beneath the fear. Stay until the end, because one smile will cost them more than either of them imagined. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 6 months before the gunshot shattered the windows of the lantern, the loudest sound in Emma Reed's life was the crack of a ceramic mug against the counter of the Harbor Bell Cafe. The customer who dropped it cursed under his breath. Emma did not. She caught the mug before it rolled onto the floor, set it beside the sink, and reached for a clean one without breaking her stride. Coffee Ray. The dock worker rubbed both hands over his tired face. Rainwater darkened the shoulders of his canvas jacket. Make it strong enough to wake the dead. Emma filled the mug from a glass pot that had been sitting on the burner too long. Best I can do is make you wish you were dead. Ray stared at the coffee. You trying to lose your tip? You have to leave one before I can lose it. He laughed and pushed 2 crumpled dollars across the counter. Emma tucked them into the pocket of her faded blue apron. The fabric had been washed so many times that the Harbor Bell logo looked like a pale ghost above her heart. Outside, Baltimore Harbor disappeared beneath a low ceiling of gray clouds. Cold rain slid down the windows and gathered in the cracks along the sill. Across the street, fishing boats rocked against their lines while gulls circled above the docks, crying into the wind. Inside, the Harbor Bell smelled of burnt coffee, frying onions, old wood, and cinnamon. The place had survived 47 years without ever becoming fashionable. Its booths were covered in cracked red vinyl. The brass rail beneath the counter had lost its shine. A row of framed photographs showed Mariners Row before glass towers began rising behind the warehouses. The register jammed whenever the weather turned wet. The front door only closed if someone pulled it hard. The menu had not changed since Emma was a child. People came anyway. They came because Marlene Shaw remembered how they liked their eggs. They came because nobody rushed them after the check arrived. They came because the Harbor Bell still treated an hour of someone's time as something more valuable than the price of a cup of coffee. Emma moved through the morning crowd with the quiet speed of someone who had learned to make herself useful before anyone could decide she was unnecessary. She refilled Walter Mercer's cup before he raised his hand. Half a cup, he warned. You said that yesterday. And you ignored me yesterday. You read until noon. You need the caffeine. Walter frowned at her over the top of his newspaper. He owned the narrow bookshop next door and looked as weathered as the shelves inside it. Young people have no respect for medical advice. You got that advice from a magazine published in 1986. It was a very good year. At the booth by the window, June Callahan sat alone with a plate of toast and 1 poached egg. She wore the same green coat every morning, even when the cafe was warm. Her husband had died 2 winters earlier, but she still ordered coffee for 2. Emma carried a fresh pot to the table. You want me to warm his up? June glanced at the untouched cup across from her. Not today, honey. Emma placed a hand against June's shoulder for a moment, then moved on without offering words that would not help. At the end of the counter, 2 construction workers split an order of pancakes. One of them stared at the empty plate when Emma approached. You boys want another stack? The younger man shook his head. Payday got pushed to Friday. Emma looked toward the service window. Marlene was arguing with the cook about a missing delivery and had her back turned. Emma slipped 2 pieces of toast onto a plate, added butter and jam, then placed it between the men. "We didn't order this. Kitchen made a mistake." The older worker looked at the perfectly browned toast. Kitchen never makes a mistake. Then today is historic. When Emma returned to the register, she placed $2 into the drawer. Marlene appeared beside her. At 57, Marlene had silver streaks in her dark hair and the expression of a woman who had spent 3 decades hearing excuses before they were fully formed. "You planning to pay for everybody in Baltimore?" "Only the hungry ones." "That narrows it down." Emma closed the drawer. Marlene looked beneath the counter at Emma's shoes. A strip of cardboard showed through a split near the sole. "You need new shoes. I need rent more. Your feet disagree." "My feet don't pay bills." Marlene's expression softened. "You working the lunch shift too?" Lena called out. Lena always calls out. She has a kid. She had the same kid last Tuesday. Emma reached for another coffee pot. "I can handle it." Marlene caught her wrist. "You have been here since 5:30. I can still feel my legs." "That is not the standard." Emma smiled. "Give it another hour." Marlene released her with a sigh. The truth was that Emma needed every hour the Harbor Belle would give her. Her studio apartment cost more than it deserved. The heating unit rattled all night and worked only when the temperature stayed above freezing. Her college loans had been sent to collections 6 months earlier. The hospital bill from her mother's final night still arrived in a white envelope every few weeks, though Emma had stopped opening it. At 23, she owned 1 winter coat, 3 work dresses, a second-hand couch, and a silver necklace she was too afraid to wear. The necklace had belonged to her mother. Everything else worth keeping had been lost, sold, or left behind when Emma could no longer afford the storage unit. At 10:15, the breakfast rush began to thin. Emma carried a bus tub into the narrow back hallway and leaned against the wall. For a moment, she let her eyes close. Her lower back ached. Her right heel burned where the torn lining of her shoe had rubbed through the skin. She could feel her heartbeat in the soles of her feet. Her phone vibrated inside her apron. She pulled it out. The banking app displayed a balance of $86.43. Rent was due in 5 days. Beneath the notification was an email from a collection agency. Final notice. Emma locked the screen. In the pocket of her purse, the unopened letter waited beside a faded photograph of her parents at the Maryland State Fair. Her father had one arm around her mother. Emma stood between them holding a stuffed bear and grinning into the sun. She had been 19 when a drunk driver crossed the center line and ended the only life she understood. For months after the funeral, people told her to take her time. The rent did not. The tuition office did not. Grief did not arrive with instructions, but every bill did. She had left college halfway through her 2nd year and never returned. Marlene found her in the hallway. "You hiding breathing. That cost extra." Emma opened her eyes. Marlene handed her half a cinnamon roll on a chipped plate. "Eat. I'm not hungry. You lost weight. I was hoping someone would notice. I noticed because your uniform hangs like a curtain." Emma took the plate. Marlene leaned against the opposite wall. "You ever think about going back to college?" Marlene nodded. Emma tore off a small piece of cinnamon roll. "People go back when they have somewhere to fall. You have me." Emma looked at her. Marlene's face was stern, but her eyes were not. "That is not the same as having a safety net." "No," Marlene said. "It is better. Safety nets do not yell at you." The telephone rang in the office. Marlene pushed away from the wall. "Finish that." "Yes, ma'am. And stop calling me ma'am." "Yes, ma'am." Marlene pointed at her, but Emma caught the hint of a smile before she disappeared into the office. The smile faded less than 3 minutes later. Emma was wiping down table 6 when she heard the office door open. Marlene stood in the hallway with the phone still in her hand. Her face had gone pale. The cafe seemed to continue around her for several seconds before Emma understood that something had changed. Walter turned a page. A spoon struck the rim of June's cup. The fryer hissed in the kitchen. Marlene did not move. Emma placed the cloth on the table. What happened? Marlene looked around the room as though she were seeing every worn surface for the first time. The building sold. Walter lowered his newspaper. What building? Marlene swallowed. All of them. The cafe went quiet. Even the cook leaned through the service window. Marlene stepped into the dining room. The whole block. Harbor Bell Walter's shop, the laundromat, the hardware store. Everything from Fleet Street to the pier. Walter folded his newspaper slowly. Who bought it? Vale Urban Development. A construction worker near the counter let out a low whistle. Emma knew the name. Everyone in Baltimore knew the name. Dominic Vale appeared in newspapers beside photographs of shining towers and restored warehouses. His company bought distressed property, removed what was there, and replaced it with buildings people like Emma could only enter if they were serving someone. Marlene gripped the phone. They are sending someone this morning to do what Emma asked, inspect the property. Walter gave a bitter laugh. They inspect before they bury you now. Marlene looked toward the front windows. He could be here in an hour. The panic arrived all at once. She ordered the cook to clean the grill. She told Emma to polish the windows. She pulled a box of china cups from the storage room, cups used only during city inspections and Christmas. The regulars helped without being asked. Walter straightened the framed photographs. June wiped sugar from the table. Ray carried 2 broken chairs into the alley. Nobody said the obvious thing. They were trying to make an old cafe appear valuable to a man who had already purchased the right to destroy it. Emma scrubbed the counter until the rag turned gray. Marlene baked a fresh tray of cinnamon biscuits. The warm scent filled the room and briefly covered the smell of grease. At 11:40, a black town car stopped outside. The driver did not get out first. A tall man in a dark coat stepped from the passenger side and surveyed the street. He looked toward the rooftops, the alley, and the parked cars before opening the rear door. Emma stood behind the counter with a coffee pot in her hand. The man who emerged from the car was younger than she expected. Dominic Vale could not have been more than 38. He wore a charcoal suit beneath a black wool coat. The suit fit him with the kind of precision that made price impossible to guess and poverty impossible to hide. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, and still in a way that drew attention. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow. Silver touched the dark hair near his temples. The papers described him as handsome. They never mentioned how carefully he watched everything. The security man entered first. Dominic followed. The Harbor Bell's brass doorbell rang above him. Every conversation stopped. Marlene stepped forward with both hands clasped at her waist. Mr. Vale, welcome to the Harbor Bell. Dominic removed his gloves. Marlene Shaw. Yes, Dominic Vale. He did not offer the false smile Emma expected. His gaze moved across the dining room, pausing on the cracked booths. The photographs, the service bell, the people watching him with open suspicion. I appreciate you meeting with me on short notice. Marlene's smile tightened. We did not know we had an appointment. No, Dominic said. You should have. Something in his answer surprised Emma. He was not apologizing for buying the block. He was apologizing for how they had learned. Marlene gestured toward the best booth near the window. Would you like some coffee? Dominic looked toward the counter. His eyes found Emma. For 1 second, she forgot she was holding a hot pot. He did not glance at her the way wealthy customers often did, quickly deciding whether she was attractive enough to notice or insignificant enough to ignore. He studied her. Not her uniform. Her. Marlene followed his gaze. Emma, bring Mr. Vale some coffee and one of the fresh biscuits. Emma reached for the good china. Her fingers were steady until she carried the tray across the room. Dominic stood when she approached. The gesture seemed automatic. "Black coffee?" she asked. "Yes." She poured. The coffee had been on the burner for 20 minutes. Dominic lifted the cup. Emma watched him take a sip. His expression barely changed, but the muscles near his eyes tightened. "You do not have to pretend," she said. Marlene froze across the room. Dominic set the cup down. "Pretend what?" "That it does not taste like someone filtered it through a tire." Silence fell so quickly that Emma could hear rain tapping the window. The security man looked at Dominic. Marlene looked ready to faint. Dominic stared at Emma. Then he laughed. The sound was quiet and rough, as if it had not been used in a long time. Emma saw the surprise on his face. A smile rose before she could stop it. Not the practiced smile she gave customers. A real one. There she said, "Now you look less like you came to bury us." The laughter disappeared, but his eyes remained on her. The air between them changed. Emma felt it before she understood it. Dominic leaned back slightly. "What is your name, Emma Reed?" Emma. The way he said it made her suddenly aware of her worn shoes and frayed apron. She placed the biscuit beside his cup. "Anything else?" "No." She turned away. Behind her, Dominic asked Marlene about the history of the cafe. Emma returned to the counter, but she could feel his attention following her through the room. The meeting lasted nearly 40 minutes. Dominic asked about revenue repairs, lease terms, staffing, and customer traffic. He listened without interrupting. He knew numbers before Marlene finished saying them. He noticed the water stain above the kitchen door and the outdated wiring near the register. He also noticed when June left without paying. Emma slipped money into the register. Dominic's eyes dropped to her hand. She shut the drawer. At last he set the coffee cup aside. "I should be direct." Marlene sat straighter. Dominic looked around the cafe. "Vale Urban purchased this block as part of a redevelopment project. The current structures require more repair than their commercial value can support." Walter stood from his booth. "You mean you are tearing them down?" Dominic turned toward him. Yes, no polished phrase, no attempt to soften the word. Marlene's face lost its remaining color. "How long current tenants will receive formal notice by Friday? Businesses will have 30 days to vacate." 30 days, Walter said. "My shop has been there for 32 years. Dominic met his anger without retreating. "We are offering relocation assistance and compensation above the legal requirement. Can your compensation replace 32 years? Numb. Walter seemed unprepared for the answer. Dominic continued, "I am not here to insult anyone by pretending money replaces history." "Then why do it?" Emma asked. Every head turned toward her. Dominic's gaze settled on her again. "Because the buildings are failing. The tax base is shrinking. 3 properties on this block are already in default. You bought them because they were weak. I bought them because no one else was investing. You call it redevelopment because destruction sounds ugly." Cole shifted near the door. Dominic remained still. "You think this block survives another 5 years without investment? I think the people here should have a say in what replaces their lives." Something moved across his face. Not anger. Recognition. Marlene touched Emma's arm. "That is enough." Dominic rose. "No, she is right to ask." He buttoned his coat. "I will provide the development plans when the city filing is complete. There will be a public meeting." Walter shook his head. "After you already own everything." Dominic looked toward the photographs on the wall. "Yes." He left cash on the table. More than the coffee and biscuit cost. Emma picked it up and followed him outside. Rain blew beneath the cafe awning. "Mr. Vale." Dominic stopped beside the car. Emma held out the bills. "You overpaid. Keep it." "No." His gaze moved to the money, then back to her. "It is a tip." It feels like an apology, and you do not accept apologies, not when they are easier than changing your mind. Cole opened the rear door. Dominic did not move. Rain gathered in his hair. You always speak to customers this way, only the ones closing the building. For the briefest moment, his mouth almost curved. He took the money from her hand. Their fingers touched. Emma felt a sudden sharp awareness travel up her arm. Dominic felt something too. She saw it in the way his eyes narrowed. Then he entered the car. Emma returned inside as the town car pulled away. Marlene stood behind the counter with both hands pressed flat against the surface. Have you lost your mind? Possibly. You told Dominic Vale his coffee tasted like a tire. It did. You accused him of buying apologies. He did. Marlene stared at her. Then Walter began to laugh. June joined him. Within seconds, half the cafe was laughing not because anything was funny, but because fear needed somewhere to go. Emma laughed with them. When she looked through the window, the black car was gone. 3 days later, formal notices appeared beneath every business door on Mariners Row. The Harbor Bell would close at the end of the month. Marlene stopped pretending she could save it. Walter began packing books into cardboard boxes. June cried when Emma told her. The dock workers argued about protests and petitions, but the property sale was legal. The permits were already moving through city offices. Emma worked longer hours because customers came to say goodbye. At night, she lay awake in her apartment calculating how many weeks she could survive without a paycheck. The answer changed depending on whether she ate. On the 4th morning after Dominic's visit, the Harbor Bell's door opened at 7:30. Dominic entered alone. No suit, no driver visible. He wore dark trousers, a black sweater, and a wool coat damp from the rain. The cafe went silent again. Marlene stepped out of the kitchen. If you are here to measure the curtains, they are not included. Dominic accepted the hostility. I came to speak with Emma. Marlene moved between them. About what A position? Emma was carrying a tray of empty cups. She placed it on the counter. What position? Dominic looked at Marlene. May we sit? No, Marlene said. Emma touched her shoulder. It is fine. They took the booth farthest from the other customers, though everyone listened. Dominic placed a business card on the table. I am opening a cafe in the new development. Emma did not touch the card. A chain number. Something with $12 coffee and chairs nobody can sit in a community space. She almost laughed. You are removing the community. I am trying to build something that can survive by destroying what is already here. His jaw tightened. Yes. The answer stole some of her anger because he did not hide from it. Dominic folded his hands on the table. I need someone who understands why this place matters. Marlene understands. I offered her a consulting role. Emma looked toward the counter. Marlene gave nothing away. Dominic continued. I want you to join a 6-month management training program as a neighborhood liaison. Emma stared at him. I carry plates. You remember every person who walks through that door. That is not management. No, it is something harder to teach. She leaned back. You know nothing about me. I know you paid for 2 workers' breakfast when you could not afford new shoes. Heat rose in Emma's face. He had seen. Dominic's eyes lowered briefly toward the split sole beneath the table. I know you let an elderly woman leave without embarrassing her. I know you challenged me when everyone else in the room had more to lose. That makes me reckless. It makes you honest. Emma looked at the card. What exactly are you offering a paid training position? Health insurance, tuition assistance if you choose to return to school, a signing payment to cover the transition. How much? $10,000. Emma stopped breathing for a second. Dominic noticed. If you complete the program and earn the permanent position, the salary begins at $68,000. She looked up sharply. I make 24. I know. The number was not simply money. It was heat in winter, shoes without holes, a refrigerator with food inside, a night of sleep without calculating rent. That made her distrust it more. Why me? Dominic was silent long enough that the cafe noise returned around them. Then he said, "Because when you smiled at me, you did not know who I was. I knew you were buying the block. You did not know what I could give you. I also knew what you could take." His eyes held hers. That is why it mattered. Emma looked away. Through the window, Walter carried another box from his bookshop. "You are offering me a future while taking one from everyone else." "Yes." "Does that bother you?" Dominic followed her gaze. "More than I expected." "That is not enough." "No," he said. "It is not." He pushed the card closer. "You do not owe me an answer today. And if I say no, I find someone else. No pressure. No threat." That somehow made the choice harder. Dominic stood. At the end of the table, he paused. "That smile was not nothing, Emma. To you, maybe. To me, it was the first honest thing I had seen in years." He left before she could answer. That night, Emma sat on the floor of her apartment because the couch sagged badly enough to hurt her back. Dominic's business card rested on the overturned crate she used as a table. Her laptop took several minutes to start. She searched his name. Hundreds of articles appeared. Dominic Vale at charity galas. Dominic Vale announcing affordable housing projects. Dominic Vale purchasing another waterfront property. He stood beside mayor's athletes, investors, and women in gowns that cost more than Emma's yearly rent. The articles called him disciplined, private, ruthless visionary. She searched deeper. Page after page repeated the same polished history. Poor childhood, construction jobs, first major investment at 26, rapid expansion, national success. Then Emma found an archived photograph from 12 years earlier. The image was grainy. A younger Dominic stood outside a Baltimore nightclub beside a broad man with silver hair and a heavy ring on his right hand. The caption identified the man as Victor Kane, a suspected organized crime financier. Emma enlarged the photograph. Dominic wore the same ring. A silver crest shaped like a crown beneath a black wing. The article had been removed, but the cached headline remained. "Young developer, questioned in federal racketeering investigation." Emma read the headline twice. She looked at the business card, then at the photograph. The apartment heater rattled behind her. Rain traced thin lines down the window, and somewhere below, a siren moved through the sleeping city. By dawn, Emma knew she could not carry the decision alone. By 7 that morning, Emma was sitting across from Marlene in the Harbor Bell, Dominic Vale's business card resting between them beside 2 untouched cups of coffee. Marlene read the card twice. Then she looked at Emma. "You searched him?" Emma nodded. "And he was questioned in a federal racketeering investigation 12 years ago. There is a photograph of him with Victor Kane." Marlene's expression changed. Everyone in Baltimore had heard Victor Kane's name. It traveled through the city in low voices attached to nightclubs, construction unions, gambling rooms, and men who disappeared before they could testify. "Was Dominic charged?" Marlene asked. "No, that does not mean he was innocent." "I know." Marlene pushed the card back across the table. "Are you afraid of him?" Emma thought of the scar through Dominic's eyebrow, the way he had studied every entrance, and the strange stillness that surrounded him. "I do not know him well enough to be afraid of him. That was not my question." Emma looked at the card. "I am afraid of how much I need what he is offering." Marlene leaned back. The cafe had not opened yet. Morning darkness pressed against the windows. The old refrigerator hummed behind the counter. "You think taking the job means you approve of what he is doing here. Does it not know? He is closing your cafe. My cafe was closing before Dominic Vale walked through that door. Emma looked up. Marlene folded her hands. I have not paid myself properly in 8 months. The roof needs replacing. The wiring should have been condemned years ago. I kept hoping one good summer would fix everything. You never told me. You had enough to carry. Emma's throat tightened. Marlene continued. This place gave me a life. It gave you somewhere to stand when you could barely get out of bed. But loving a place does not make it immortal. It still feels wrong. Then make the new place better. Emma shook her head. He offered me a management program because I smiled at him. He noticed you because you smiled. That is not the same as keeping you because of it. You think I should accept? I think you should ask hard questions. I think you should protect yourself. I think you should make him put every promise in writing. Marlene reached across the table. And I think drowning beside the harbor bell will not save it. Emma closed her fingers around the business card. 3 days later, she called the number printed beneath Dominic's name. His assistant answered on the second ring. Emma expected to be scheduled for a meeting. Instead, Dominic came to the phone. Emma. He sounded as if he had been waiting. I want to discuss the position. Come to my office tomorrow at 9. I have conditions. A short silence followed. Good, he said. Bring them. The harbor bell closed 2 weeks later. On the final afternoon, every table was occupied. June Callahan brought flowers. Ray and the dock workers arrived in clean shirts. Walter closed his bookshop early and carried in a box filled with novels he had saved from storage. Marlene served the last cinnamon biscuits herself. Nobody spoke about the moment when the doors would be locked. They talked about old customers, bad weather, broken equipment, and the time a sailor brought a goat into the dining room because he claimed it was an emotional support animal. They laughed until June began crying. Then everyone else stopped pretending. Walter gave Emma a worn book about hospitality management. My father gave me this when I opened the shop. Emma ran her fingers across the cracked cover. I cannot take this. You can return it when you know everything inside. That could take a while. Walter smiled. So did building a good bookshop. June placed a small blue ceramic bird in Emma's hands. It had stood near the harbor bell window for as long as Emma could remember. Keep something from the old place, June said, so the new one knows where it came from. Marlene waited until everyone had gone. She removed the brass service bell from the counter and gave it to Emma. Every place needs something that calls people home. Emma hugged her. Marlene held her tightly. You do not owe this building your future, she whispered. They turned off the lights together. When Emma pulled the front door closed, she saw a black car parked across the street. Dominic sat in the back seat. He did not come inside. He simply watched as the harbor bell went dark. Emma met his gaze through the rain. For once, he did not look powerful. He looked responsible. The next morning, Emma entered the headquarters of Vale Urban Development wearing a borrowed blazer and the only black trousers she owned. The lobby rose 3 stories above her. Glass walls reflected the city. Employees crossed polished stone floors with phones in their hands and certainty in their steps. Emma felt as though everyone could see the cardboard still tucked inside her shoe. A woman with steel gray hair met her near the elevators. Emma Reed. Yes, I am Evelyn Price, Chief Operating Officer. Her handshake was firm. Mr. Vale believes you have potential. Emma waited. Evelyn raised one eyebrow. You expected me to congratulate you? No. Good. Potential is another word for unproven. The training began immediately. Emma learned food costs, payroll systems, labor regulations, inventory, control, vendor contracts, and scheduling. She failed often. During her first week, she ordered enough coffee beans for 3 months instead of 3 weeks. During a financial exercise, she confused gross revenue with profit and proposed a budget that would have bankrupted the cafe before opening day. During a mock employee dispute, she tried so hard to understand both sides that she never made a decision. Evelyn closed the folder in front of her. Compassion without judgment is avoidance. Emma's face burned. I was trying to be fair. Fairness does not mean refusing to lead. That night, Emma studied until 2 a.m. The following day, she asked to repeat the exercise. This time, she listened, asked questions, and made a decision neither employee liked, but both understood. Evelyn gave one brief nod. It felt better than praise. Dominic remained mostly absent during the first 2 weeks. Emma saw him once in an elevator. 3 executives stood between them. He looked at her reflection in the mirrored wall. How is the training painful? One executive glanced at her. Dominic almost smiled. Good. The elevator opened. As Emma stepped out, he said, pain means you are learning where you are weak. She turned. And what does it mean when you avoid answering questions? The executives went still. Dominic held her gaze. It means I know exactly where I am weak. The doors closed between them. At the end of the 3rd week, Emma attended her first design meeting. A large rendering of the new café covered the conference room wall. The space was beautiful. White stone counters, brass lighting, narrow tables, pale furniture, tall windows overlooking the harbor. Every surface looked expensive. Nothing looked comfortable. A designer described the concept as modern coastal luxury. Dominic sat at the head of the table listening. When the presentation ended, he looked at Emma. You have not said anything. The designer smiled politely. She is still becoming familiar with the project. Emma kept her eyes on the rendering. Dominic said, That was not what I asked. Emma stood. It is beautiful. The designer relaxed. Emma pointed at the seating plan. But nobody will stay. The room fell silent. She moved closer to the rendering. The tables are too small for families. The chairs have no padding. There are no outlets for students. No place for a wheelchair without blocking the walkway. The designer crossed his arms. This is a premium space. Premium does not have to mean uncomfortable. We are creating turnover. You are creating a room people photograph once. A man from finance frowned. Customers who stay too long reduce revenue. Emma turned to him. Regular customers create predictable revenue. They also bring other people. She pointed toward a narrow corner near the windows. June Callahan sits in the same place every morning because she lost her husband and does not want to eat alone. Walter reads for 3 hours because his bookshop is too cold in winter. Students buy 1 coffee, but they return 5 days a week. The finance executive said, Sentiment is not a business model. No, Emma replied. Loyalty is. Dominic leaned back. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then he looked at the designer. Revise it. The designer blinked. Which elements? All of them. After the meeting, Dominic found Emma standing near the windows. You enjoyed that? She looked at him. Maybe a little. You were prepared. I spent 4 mornings interviewing Harbor Bell customers, without being asked. I thought that was why you hired me. Dominic stepped closer. It is becoming the reason. The cafe redesign took another month. Dominic gave Emma a harder assignment. An empty warehouse on Mariners Row had been scheduled for demolition. Before it came down, Emma had 2 weeks to turn it into a one-night community event. She received a strict budget and no promise of help. Emma called former Harbor Bell customers. She convinced Walter to sell books from folding tables. She invited local bakers, musicians, painters, and shop owners. She persuaded the construction company to lend lighting equipment. On the evening of the event, a storm rolled over the harbor. 30 minutes before the doors opened, the power failed. The warehouse fell dark. One of the vendors began packing. We are done. Emma looked at the rows of tables, the food, and the people gathering outside beneath umbrellas. No. She found boxes of emergency candles. The musicians agreed to play without amplifiers. The coffee vendor heated water on portable gas burners. Luke Mercer, the project architect and Walter's son, used battery lamps to illuminate the entrances. When the doors opened, people stepped into a room glowing with candlelight. Rain drummed against the roof. Music moved through the darkness. Strangers shared tables because they could not see where one group ended and another began. The event was fuller than any of them expected. Near midnight, Emma rang the Harbor Bell's old brass bell. The sound carried through the warehouse. Everyone applauded. Dominic stood near the back with Evelyn. He had arrived without Emma noticing. Evelyn watched her speak with vendors and customers. "You were right about her," she said. Dominic did not look away from Emma. "I know." Evelyn studied him. "That is not what concerns me." After the crowd left, Emma began folding tables. Dominic removed his coat and helped. He struggled with one of the metal legs. Emma watched him. "You own half the waterfront, but a folding table has defeated you. I own people who understand folding tables. You cannot own people." Dominic looked at her. "No," he said quietly. "You cannot." The humor disappeared. Emma lowered the table. "You grew up here, did you not?" "Not here." "West Baltimore." "What was it like?" Dominic continued working. "Cold in winter, hot in summer, loud every night." "That sounds familiar." "My father drank. My mother hid money in flour bags so he would not find it." Emma stopped moving. Dominic stared at the metal table between them. "We were evicted 3 times before I turned 14. I remember men standing in our kitchen deciding how long we were allowed to remain in our own home. So you became the man who decides." The words landed heavily. Dominic looked at her. "Yes. Did it make you feel safe?" He glanced around the empty warehouse. "No." A pair of headlights appeared through the dirty windows. A dark sedan waited across the street. Dominic's body changed. His shoulders tightened. His attention sharpened. He moved Emma behind him. "Stay here." Cole appeared near the entrance as if he had been summoned without words. The sedan pulled away. Emma watched it disappear into the rain. "Who was that?" "Probably nobody. That was not how you reacted." Dominic adjusted his cuff. When he did, Emma noticed blood across his knuckles. "What happened to your hand?" "I cut it." On a folding table, his eyes met hers. "No." The following evening, Dominic invited Emma to dinner with Luke Mercer. The restaurant occupied the top floor of a hotel overlooking the harbor. Emma wore her mother's silver necklace and a black dress she had purchased for work. The dining room was quiet enough to hear ice shift inside glasses. Luke showed them the revised plans. Emma's suggestions had changed the entire space. There were larger tables, comfortable chairs, a reading corner, affordable menu options, and an open area for community events. Dominic asked for her opinion before giving his own. Luke listened when she spoke. For the first time, Emma forgot to feel out of place. After Luke left, Dominic poured water into her glass. "You did well. I did my job. You're beginning to sound like Evelyn. That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." Dominic smiled. Emma looked at him across the candlelit table. "Who is Victor Kane?" The smile disappeared. Dominic set down the bottle. "Where did you hear that name? I found a photograph." He leaned back. "It was a long time ago." "That is not an answer." "No." "Were you involved with him?" Dominic's expression became unreadable. "I knew men I should never have known." His phone vibrated on the table. One letter appeared on the screen. V. Dominic rejected the call. Emma looked from the phone to his face. "You should answer." "No." "Why?" "Because some doors are easier to keep closed when you stop touching the handle." 3 days later, Evelyn recommended Emma for the permanent manager position. Dominic presented the contract in his office. Emma read every page. "I have conditions. I expected you would. I report to Evelyn, not you. Agreed. My performance reviews go through an independent panel. Agreed. The cafe keeps an affordable menu. Dominic nodded. A percentage of profits goes into a fund for displaced local businesses. He studied her. That reduces investor returns. I know. He picked up a pen. Agreed. Emma signed. Dominic signed after her. You negotiate like someone who finally understands her value. Emma closed the folder. I am beginning to. When she left his office, she heard Cole speaking near the elevators. Victor Kane's men were seen on Mariners Row. Cole noticed Emma. He ended the call. Behind the closed office door, Dominic crossed to a painting and pressed his thumb against a hidden sensor. A safe opened inside the wall. He removed a black metal box and placed it on his desk. Inside lay a pistol, several old financial ledgers, and a silver ring engraved with a crown beneath a black wing. Dominic picked up the ring. For several seconds, he held it beneath the office light. Then his phone vibrated again. This time he answered. Dominic lifted the phone to his ear. For several seconds, he said nothing. Emma had already reached the elevators, but the office door had not fully closed behind her. She could not hear the voice on the other end. She only heard Dominic's answer. You do not contact me again. A pause followed. Dominic's fingers closed around the silver ring. No, that agreement ended years ago. His face became still. Then he looked toward the open doorway. Emma stepped into the elevator before he could see her listening. The doors closed. She told herself the call was none of her business. The lie followed her all the way home. 2 months later. The lantern opened beneath a pale spring sky. The new cafe stood on the corner of Mariners Row and Thames Street, where the harbor bell had once faced the water. Tall windows wrapped around 2 sides of the building. Warm brass lamps hung above dark wood tables. A long community table occupied the center of the room. Near the register sat June Callahan's blue ceramic bird. Above it hung the harbor bell's old brass service bell. Emma arrived before dawn. The cafe smelled of fresh paint-roasted coffee and bread warming in the kitchen. Every chair had been polished. Every cup had been counted. Every staff member had received a schedule, a handbook, and 2 weeks of training. Emma had checked everything twice. Then the first delivery failed to arrive. At 6:15, the bakery called to say its van had broken down near Canton. At 6:21, of the baristas called in sick. At 6:30, the espresso machine began losing pressure. At 6:40, customers were already waiting outside. Evelyn entered through the side door and looked at the growing line. You seem calm. I am not. Good. Panic should remain private. Emma tied her apron. The bakery delivery is late. The espresso machine is barely working. Daniel is sick. What are you going to do? Emma looked toward the kitchen, then toward the staff gathering around her. She did not wait for Evelyn to answer the question for her. She sent one employee to a nearby bakery with the company van. She moved the strongest barista to the front machine and reassigned the others to manual brewing stations. She reduced the opening menu to drinks and food the kitchen could prepare reliably. Then she unlocked the front door herself. The first customer was June. She wore her green coat and held a bouquet of white flowers. You saved my table. Emma looked toward the corner by the window. A small brass plaque had been fixed to the wall beside it, reserved for June. You would have complained if I had not. I would have haunted you after I died. You already come in every morning. I would not notice the difference. June laughed and hugged her. Walter arrived carrying 2 boxes of books for the reading corner. Ray and the dock workers came straight from the harbor. Luke entered with his father and immediately began moving chairs when he saw the line growing. The room filled faster than Emma expected. Orders piled up. The weakened espresso machine groaned beneath the pressure. A new employee named Sophie stared at the screen as tickets appeared one after another. I cannot do this. Emma moved beside her. Look at me. Sophie's breathing came too quickly. 1 cup, Emma said. Then the next one. There are 30 orders. There is 1 order in your hand. Sophie looked down. Emma stayed until the first drink was finished. Then she moved to the next problem. A food critic from the Baltimore Chronicle arrived without warning. The replacement pastries were still 10 minutes away. A customer complained about the wait. Someone spilled coffee near the entrance. The card reader froze. Emma handled each crisis without raising her voice. By 10 o'clock, the missing delivery arrived. By noon, every table was occupied. By 3, the critic had ordered a second drink. Dominic stood near the rear wall watching. He had arrived during the rush and remained out of Emma's way. He wore a dark suit but no tie. Cole stood several feet behind him, scanning the room rather than enjoying it. Evelyn approached Dominic. She did not ask for help once. She had help. She asked the right people. Dominic watched Emma kneel beside a child who had dropped a cookie. She replaced it and made the child promise not to tell the accounting department. "You gave her a door," Evelyn said. Dominic's eyes stayed on Emma. She walked through it on her own. Near closing time, Marlene entered. Emma froze when she saw her. Marlene had moved to Delaware to help her sister run a small coastal inn. Her hair was shorter. Her face looked rested in a way Emma had never seen at the Harbor Bell. Emma crossed the café and embraced her. "You came. You think I would miss this?" Marlene looked around the room. The lantern was not the Harbor Bell. The walls were cleaner. The coffee was better. The prices were higher, though several menu items remained affordable. Students worked at the center table. A group of retired men played cards near the windows. Walter organized books on the shelves. Marlene touched the old brass bell above the register. "You kept it." "Of course." Marlene looked at Emma. "You kept the right parts." After the last customer left, the staff gathered in the center of the cafe. Emma thanked them. She did not give a speech. She told them which problems they had solved, which customers had praised them, and what needed to improve the next morning. When the final employee left, Emma locked the door. She leaned against it and closed her eyes. "You survived." Dominic's voice came from behind her. Emma opened her eyes. He was stacking chairs. "You do know people are paid to do that. I wanted to see whether you would correct me. You are doing it wrong." Dominic looked at the chair in his hands. "It is a chair. It goes on the table with the seat facing inward." "Why?" "So the cleaning crew can reach the legs." He turned it around. "Better acceptable." Emma crossed the room and began wiping the counter. For a while, neither spoke. Rain had started outside soft against the windows. The lamps cast warm circles across the empty tables. Without customers, the room felt intimate. Dominic placed the last chair on a table. "You should be proud." Emma glanced at him. "I am tired. That is not the same thing." She folded the cloth. "I thought something would go wrong. Several things did. I mean something I could not fix." Dominic walked toward her. "You did not fix everything alone. I know. You trusted your staff. That was harder." He stopped on the opposite side of the counter. "You built something people wanted to enter. We built it?" "No." Emma frowned. Dominic rested both hands on the wood. "I bought the building. Luke designed the room. Evelyn trained the staff. But this place feels alive because of you." Emma looked toward June's table. "You gave me the chance. I noticed you because of a smile." His voice had changed. The room seemed quieter. Emma met his gaze. Dominic continued. "I admired you because you challenged me. I respected you because you refused to accept what was convenient. Somewhere between the warehouse and this morning, I stopped pretending that was all I felt." Emma's heartbeat quickened. "You are still the man who owns the company that signs my checks. Evelyn and the board control your contract, because I asked you to arrange it, because you were right to ask." Emma stepped around the counter. If this goes badly, I do not lose my career. You will not. That was not a question. Dominic held her gaze. No matter what happens between us, your position remains yours. Your salary, your authority, and any future ownership agreement will be reviewed independently. You would put that in writing? Yes. Before anything happens. His eyes moved briefly to her mouth. Before anything happens. Emma stood close enough to feel his warmth. You have been thinking about this. Every day. Since the warehouse. Since the harbor bell. She almost smiled. That was one cup of terrible coffee. It was an important cup. Emma touched the front of his shirt. His breathing changed. She had expected a man like Dominic to take control of the moment. Instead, he waited. The restraint affected her more than urgency would have. She rose onto her toes and kissed him. For 1 second, he did not move. Then his hand came to her waist. The kiss deepened slowly, carrying months of unspoken tension. His other hand touched her face with surprising care. Emma felt the strength in him held beneath deliberate control. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "Are you sure?" he asked. "No." Dominic's mouth curved. "Honest. I thought you liked that." "I do." She kissed him again. Their relationship began quietly. They did not announce it to the company. They did not arrive at events together. Inside the Lantern, Dominic treated Emma as the manager, and Emma refused to let him enter the kitchen without permission. Outside work, she discovered a different man. Dominic owned a penthouse with a kitchen larger than her apartment, but he could not cook. The first time he tried to make scrambled eggs, he burned the butter and dropped half an eggshell into the pan. Emma sat on the counter watching him. "You built a national company. I had employees. You should hire someone to supervise breakfast. I thought that was why you were here." She threw a dish towel at him. Another night, Emma took him to a diner near Patterson Park, where the coffee was weak and the booths were covered in green vinyl. No one recognized him. Dominic sat with his back to the wall. Emma noticed. "You always choose that seat. It has the best view of the door. Is that habit or fear?" He looked at her over his cup. "Both." A week later, Dominic accompanied Emma to the cemetery where her parents were buried. He brought no flowers because she had not asked him to. He stood several feet away while she cleaned the leaves from the headstones. When Emma finally reached for his hand, he gave it without speaking. She loved him most in those quiet moments, not when drivers opened doors for them or when restaurants brought food she had never heard of. She loved him when he woke in the night and checked the locks. When he confessed that silence made him nervous because childhood arguments had always begun after the house became quiet. When he listened without trying to repair grief that did not belong to him. Dominic revealed himself in fragments. Emma accepted the fragments, but she did not forget the photograph of Victor Kane. One evening, Dominic took her to the neighborhood where he had grown up. The row house was gone. In its place stood a brick apartment complex with wide windows and a small playground. "My company built this," he said. Emma watched children ride bicycles along the sidewalk. Affordable housing. Income restricted. An older man standing near the entrance recognized Dominic. His expression hardened. "You came back to admire your work." Dominic stopped. The man approached. "My sister lived in one of your first buildings. You raised the rent until she had nowhere to go. That project was more than 10 years ago. You think time makes it clean?" Dominic said nothing. The man looked at Emma. "He builds homes now because he remembers the ones he took." Then he walked away. Emma waited until they returned to the car. Was he right? Dominic looked through the window. "Yes, you forced people out. I purchased buildings with debt I could not afford. Raising rents was the fastest way to make the numbers work. And now you build affordable housing. It does not erase what I did. Why do it?" He looked at her. Because guilt can become useless if you only carry it. Emma thought about the harbor bell. Guilt can build something good. It just cannot erase what came before. Dominic nodded. I know. A package arrived at Dominic's penthouse the following morning. There was no return address. Cole opened it in the kitchen while Emma drank coffee near the windows. Inside lay a silver ring, a crown beneath a black wing. Dominic's face changed. Emma recognized it from the photograph. What is that? Nothing. Cole looked at him. Dominic corrected himself. Something old. Beneath the ring was a small white card. Dominic read it once, then folded it. Emma held out her hand. Let me see. No. The answer came too quickly. Emma lowered her hand. What does it say? Dominic placed the card back inside the box. It does not concern you. You made me part of your life. That does not make every danger yours. So it is dangerous. Dominic glanced at Cole. Leave us. Cole did not move immediately. Then he closed the box and walked out. Emma waited. Dominic turned toward the harbor. Victor Kane wants to remind me of an old obligation. What obligation? One I no longer recognize. That does not answer the question. It is the answer I can give you. Emma felt anger rise. You keep asking me to trust a locked door. I am trying to keep you on the safe side of it. You do not know which side is safe. Dominic faced her. For a moment she saw fear beneath his control. Then it disappeared. I know more than you think. Emma picked up her coat. Not enough to tell me the truth. She left before he could stop her. Evelyn arrived at Dominic's office later that afternoon. She placed the same white card on his desk. You burned the original. I made a copy. Dominic looked at the words. A man may leave the table. His debt remains seated. Evelyn closed the office door. You are making the same mistake again. I am keeping her out of it. You are deciding what truth she can survive. I am deciding what danger reaches her. You stopped controlling that when you let her matter. Dominic's jaw tightened. Evelyn leaned closer. Victor does not need access to your accounts. He does not need leverage over the company. Her voice softened. He knows where you look when you are afraid. That evening, Emma remained at the Lantern after the staff left. She had not spoken to Dominic since leaving the penthouse. The silence between them weighed more heavily than anger. At 11:20, she began closing the register. Sophie carried a trash bag toward the kitchen. The front door opened. 3 men entered. Emma looked at the clock. We are closed. The largest man turned the lock behind him. We are not here for coffee. Sophie stopped near the kitchen door. Emma smiled at her. Can you check the inventory in the storage room? Sophie looked at the men. Emma's voice remained calm. Now. Sophie disappeared into the kitchen. Emma moved behind the counter where the silent alarm had been installed beneath the register. One of the men watched her hand. Do not. Emma stopped. The leader wore a dark coat and black leather gloves. A silver crest gleamed on a ring near his knuckle. The crown beneath the black wing. What do you want? To speak with Dominic Vale. Then call him. He stopped answering. That sounds like an answer. The man smiled. So this is why. Emma said nothing. He looked around the Lantern. He tore down your little cafe, then built you a prettier one. He did not build this for me. No. The man touched the brass bell hanging above the register. He took your home and gave you a throne. Emma's fear sharpened into anger. You do not know anything about me. I know you are the first thing Dominic Vale has loved more than his own survival. He lifted the blue ceramic bird from beside the register. Emma stepped forward. Put that down. He released it. The bird struck the floor and shattered. The sound cracked through the empty cafe. Emma stared at the broken pieces. The man leaned across the counter. "Tell Dominic that Victor Kane expects him at the old Pier 9 warehouse tomorrow night. I will not deliver threats for you. This is not a threat." His eyes moved toward the kitchen where Sophie was hiding. "It is an invitation." He reached across the counter and closed his hand around Emma's wrist. His grip tightened until pain shot through her arm. "If he refuses, we begin removing the things he loves." Emma forced herself not to pull away. "You tell Victor Kane that breaking things does not make him powerful." The man's smile vanished. "No. Making people afraid to rebuild does." He released her. The three men left as quietly as they had entered. Emma waited until the door closed. Then her knees weakened. She pressed the silent alarm again, though she knew it was already active. Sophie ran from the kitchen. "Are you hurt? I am fine." Emma looked at the broken blue bird. She was not fine. Dominic arrived 9 minutes later with Cole and 4 security officers. He crossed the cafe before the car door had fully closed behind him. His eyes found the bruise forming around Emma's wrist. "Who touched you?" "I do not know his name." Dominic took her hand carefully. His expression became colder with every mark he saw. "What did they say?" Emma told him. When she repeated Victor's invitation, Dominic released her and turned toward Cole. "Find them." Cole nodded. "I want every camera from this street. Every vehicle. Every face." "Dominic," Emma said. He did not seem to hear her. "Call the harbor team. Lock down Pier 9. "Dominic." He looked at her. The man she loved was still there, but something older had moved in front of him. "I will end this tonight," he said. Emma felt the room grow colder. "What does that mean?" "It means they will never come near you again." How? Dominic looked toward Cole. That silence answered her. Emma followed him to his penthouse. He told her to remain in the living room while he spoke with security. She waited until the office door closed. Then she saw the painting near the far wall sitting slightly crooked. Behind it, a steel panel remained open. The safe inside had not been locked. Emma approached. A black metal box rested on the shelf. Inside lay the silver ring, a pistol, and several old ledgers. She opened the first ledger. Names filled the pages. Shell companies. Property transfers. Cash payments. Loans. Political offices. Besides several entries were initials Emma recognized from newspaper articles about missing men and closed investigations. Dominic entered the room. He stopped when he saw the ledger in her hands. Emma looked at him. The bruise around her wrist throbbed. "Tell me who you really are." Dominic closed the office door behind him. "The man you know is real." Emma held up the ledger. "So is this one." Dominic looked at the ledger in Emma's hands as though it belonged to a dead man who had somehow found his way back into the room. Neither of them moved. Beyond the penthouse windows, Baltimore glittered beneath the rain. Cars crossed the harbor bridge in thin streams of white and red. From this height, the city looked quiet. Emma knew better now. "Put it down," Dominic said. His voice was calm, but there was nothing gentle in it. Emma tightened her grip on the leather cover. "No. Emma, do not say my name like that. Like what? Like you can still decide what happens in this room." Something flickered across his face. He closed the distance between them slowly, stopping several feet away. "I was going to tell you. When I knew the danger had passed. The danger walked into my cafe tonight." Dominic glanced at the bruises around her wrist. His jaw tightened. Emma lifted the ledger. "These names, these payments, these properties. What am I looking at?" Dominic remained silent. She opened to a page marked with the name of a construction company she recognized from the photograph of Victor Kane. There are cash transfers listed beside city contracts. There are judges, union officials, police officers. She turned another page. There are buildings bought through companies that do not exist. Shell companies. You say that like it makes this easier. It does not. Emma looked at the pistol inside the metal box. Did you kill people? Dominic's eyes did not leave hers. No. Did you have people killed? No. Did you know people were being hurt? A longer silence followed. Emma felt the answer before he spoke. Yes. The word entered the room without force, yet it struck harder than anything else he could have said. Dominic walked to the window. For the first time since Emma had met him, he seemed unable to look at her. I was 24 when I met Victor Kane. Emma waited. Dominic pressed one hand against the glass. My mother had died. My father had disappeared years earlier. I had a construction crew, 2 trucks, and more debt than work. Banks would not lend to me. Investors did not take meetings with men who grew up where I did. So Victor gave you money. He gave me access. Dominic turned. Money, contracts, labor, inspectors who stopped asking questions, officials who approved permits before applications were complete. What did he want in return? At first, nothing I could see. Emma gave a bitter laugh. Men like him never give anything away. I knew that. But you took it. Yes. Rain pressed harder against the windows. Dominic walked toward the desk but did not sit. My first major project was an apartment building near the Inner Harbor. Victor financed the purchase through 3 companies. I renovated it, raised the rents, and sold it 18 months later. How many people lost their homes, I do not know. Emma stared at him. You do not know I made sure I did not know. The honesty was almost unbearable. Dominic looked down at his hands. I called it business. I said the building was failing. I said anyone would have done the same. Every lie sounded reasonable when I repeated it often enough. Emma thought of the harbor bell. You are still saying those things. I know. No, Dominic. I do not think you do. Her voice broke. You walked into the harbor bell and told us change was inevitable. You said another developer would do worse. That was the same excuse. His face tightened. Yes. You built the lantern because you felt guilty. I built it because the neighborhood deserved something better than what I had taken from other neighborhoods. And because you wanted me. Dominic looked at her. That was part of it. Emma closed the ledger. Tell me the rest. He drew a slow breath. Victor used my developments to move money. Construction invoices were inflated. Payments were routed through subcontractors. Properties changed hands at false values. And you signed the papers? Yes. Did you know where the money came from? Yes. What else? Dominic's gaze moved toward the ring inside the box. One owner refused to sell a warehouse that Victor wanted. His business was vandalized. His son was beaten. Emma's stomach turned. Did you order it? No. Did you benefit from it? Yes. The rain became the only sound between them. Dominic continued before she could ask again. There were loans made to desperate people at rates they could never repay. Victor used my companies to make them look legitimate. When borrowers defaulted, their properties were taken. And you became rich. Yes. Emma looked at the man standing before her. She saw the expensive shirt, the controlled posture, the scar through his eyebrow. She also saw every unanswered question he had hidden behind locked doors. How did it end? It did not end all at once. Dominic moved to the bar and poured water instead of whiskey. I spent years separating my company from Victor's network. I bought out investors tied to him, closed shell companies, paid debts that were never written down. Every time I cut one connection, another appeared. Why did he allow you to leave? He did not. Dominic took a drink. I made myself difficult to control. I gathered evidence, enough to damage him if anything happened to me. The ledgers, some of them. Emma looked at the black box. Then why is he coming back now? Because he believes I have become too comfortable to use them. His eyes moved to her bruised wrist. And because he found something I cannot replace, Emma stepped away from him. Do not make this sound romantic. I am not. You are. Her anger rose with every breath. You are turning me into proof that you changed. I am not your redemption, Dominic. I know. Do you? She pointed toward the ledgers. Because you built a beautiful cafe, funded affordable housing, and helped me change my life. Those things are real. So are the people who lost theirs while you built your empire. I have never denied that. You never told me. His voice sharpened. Because I knew what would happen. What would happen? You would look at me exactly as you are looking at me now. Emma felt tears burn behind her eyes. You decided that your fear mattered more than my right to choose. Dominic said nothing. The silence confirmed it. Emma set the ledger on the desk. I need to leave. His expression changed. Emma, I cannot breathe in this room. Victor's men know where you live. Then Cole can follow me. You should stay here tonight. No. They touched you because of me. That does not give you the right to keep me here. Dominic's hands closed into fists at his sides. I am trying to protect you. You have been saying that every time you lie. He looked as though she had struck him. Emma picked up her coat. Dominic did not block the door. He did not touch her. That restraint hurt more than either action would have. I love you, he said. Emma stopped with her hand on the door. The words felt wrong in the room with the gun and the ledgers. She looked back at him. I love the man who sat beside me at my parents' graves. That man is real. So is the one who signed these pages. Yes, I do not know how to hold both of them yet. Dominic's face became still. What do you need, Space? For how long I do not know. His eyes closed briefly. Emma continued. Do not call me. Do not come to the lantern unless it is necessary. Do not send gifts or money or apologies written by lawyers. I would not. You have solved every problem in your life by controlling the room. Dominic opened his eyes. Not this one. No. Emma pulled the door open. Not this one. Cole drove her home. Neither of them spoke during the first 10 minutes. Baltimore moved outside the car in wet flashes. Storefront lights blurred across the glass. Emma watched pedestrians hurry beneath umbrellas and felt separated from them by more than the window. Cole kept both hands on the wheel. He should have told you. Emma looked at him. You knew. I knew enough. How much is enough? Cole's face remained forward. I knew Victor helped him at the beginning. I knew Dominic spent years trying to get out. Did you know about the people who were hurt? Yes. Emma looked back through the window. Why do you work for him? Cole considered the question. Because I met him after he had started trying to change. That does not answer me. No. He turned onto Emma's street. I worked federal investigations before private security. I saw men confess because they wanted lighter sentences. I saw men donate money because they wanted buildings named after them. Cole slowed near her apartment. Dominic is the only man I have seen build something that made less money because he believed it was the right thing to do. Emma looked at him. That does not erase the past. I did not say it did. Cole stopped the car. A second vehicle parked across the street. 2 officers will remain nearby. I asked for space. From Dominic. Not from the men who threatened you. Emma reached for the door handle. Does he know you are saying this no good? The next 3 days passed without a call from Dominic. Emma went to the lantern before sunrise and stayed until closing. She checked every lock herself. She watched the street whenever a dark car stopped outside. The broken blue ceramic bird remained in a box beneath the register. Emma had collected every piece but could not bring herself to throw them away. Sophie asked once whether Dominic was coming in. Emma pretended not to hear. On the second day, a photographer waited across the street. By noon, a picture of Emma leaving Dominic's penthouse appeared on a local gossip site. The headline called her the mystery waitress who captured Baltimore's most private billionaire. The article mentioned the Harbor Bell, the Lantern, and rumors about Dominic's early business connections. Customers began staring at Emma differently. Some smiled with curiosity. Others looked at her as though she had deceived them. A woman approached the counter during lunch. "Did he give you this place because you were sleeping with him?" The room became quiet. Emma felt heat rise into her face. She set down the cup in her hand. "The Lantern is owned by Vale Urban Development. I was selected through a training program and evaluated by an independent board." The woman shrugged. "That is not what the article says." "No," Emma replied. "It would not get as many clicks if it did." The woman left without her order. Emma continued working. Her hands did not stop shaking until she reached the office. On the third afternoon, Walter came in carrying a folder. He waited until Emma finished the lunch rush. "There is someone you should meet." Emma looked at the folder. "Who?" "A woman named Sarah Holt." The name meant nothing to her. Walter sat at the community table. Her family owned an apartment building Dominic purchased 14 years ago. Emma's stomach tightened. "What happened?" "You should hear it from her." Sarah Holt arrived that evening. She was in her early 40s with tired eyes and short brown hair. She did not resemble someone who had spent years planning revenge. She looked like a nurse, a teacher, or any other person Emma might pass on the street without remembering. Sarah refused coffee. "My father bought the building in 1989, she said. 12 apartments above 2 shops. Nothing impressive, but it paid for our home." Emma sat across from her. "Dominic bought it." "His company did. One of the shell companies." Sarah placed documents on the table. "My father refused the first offer. Then the city found code violations. The bank called our loan. Contractors stopped returning calls. Someone broke the windows in both stores." Emma looked down at the photographs. Broken glass covered a sidewalk. Was Victor Kane involved? Sarah's mouth tightened. "My father believed so." "What happened to him?" "He sold." Sarah looked toward the windows of the Lantern. 6 months later, Dominic renovated the building and tripled the rent. "I am sorry." Sarah's expression remained calm. Sorry is easy when the damage belongs to someone else. Emma accepted the words. Sarah continued. "My father died 2 years later. My brother Graham never recovered. Walter said he was angry with Dominic. Angry is too small." Sarah gathered the papers into a neat stack. "Graham built his whole life around the idea that Dominic stole ours." "Did he?" Sarah looked at Emma for a long moment. "Yes." The answer left no space for comfort. Emma asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Graham has been watching Dominic." A chill moved through Emma. "How do you know I found photographs in his apartment? Dominic's office, his car, this cafe?" Sarah's gaze settled on Emma. "You." Emma's hands tightened beneath the table. "Where is Graham now, I do not know. Have you told the police they said photographs are not a crime? Cole needs to know." Sarah nodded. "I already contacted him." Emma studied her. "Do you hate Dominic?" Sarah looked toward the framed photograph of the Harbor Bell. "I hate what he did. That was not my question." "No." Sarah's voice softened. "Hate is expensive. My brother has spent everything on it." She stood. Before leaving, she looked back at Emma. "Be careful about forgiving powerful men." Emma rose. "I have not forgiven him." "Then ask yourself something before you do." Sarah held her gaze. Does he want forgiveness, or does he only want to feel forgiven? That night, Dominic entered the old warehouse at Pier 9 alone. The building stood beyond a chain-link fence near an abandoned shipping yard. Wind pushed rain through holes in the roof. Rusted cranes rose above the harbor like skeletal hands. Cole waited in a vehicle 2 blocks away despite Dominic's order to stay behind. Inside, one light burned above a folding table. Victor Kane sat beneath it. He was 60 years old, broad-shouldered and dressed in a dark overcoat. His silver hair was combed neatly back. The ring on his right hand matched the one in Dominic's safe. 2 men stood near the walls. Victor poured clear liquor into 2 glasses. "You came." Dominic stopped several feet from the table. "You threatened Emma. I invited you to remember your manners. You sent men into her café. They touched nothing valuable." Dominic's expression hardened. Victor smiled. "There he is." He lifted one glass. "The boy who used to enter rooms ready to bite. That boy is gone." "No." Victor drank. "He owns better suits." Dominic did not sit. "What do you want?" "A federal infrastructure project is opening bids next month. Rail housing commercial space. Very expensive. I know the project. You will win it." "I have not submitted a bid." "You will." Dominic looked at him. Victor leaned back. "Several companies will work beneath yours. Money will move through construction contracts. Nobody will be harmed. That is what you told me the first time. And you became rich. Find someone else." "I did not make someone else." Victor's voice remained conversational. "I opened doors for you when banks laughed at your name. I placed men in offices. I made inspectors blind. I turned a hungry animal into a king. You used me." "Yes." Victor smiled. "And you used me better." Dominic stepped closer to the table. "The answer is no." Victor's smile faded. "You think the woman makes you clean?" "No." "Then why risk her?" Dominic's gaze sharpened. Victor continued. "You cooperate and she keeps her café. She walks home safely. She grows old telling herself she found the good man hidden inside you. And if I refuse," Victor poured another drink, "life becomes unpredictable." Dominic leaned over the table. "If anyone approaches her again, the ledgers go to federal prosecutors." Victor did not move. "You think I fear paper? You fear the names inside it." For the first time, Victor's eyes became cold. "You were always ambitious. I learned from you." Victor looked toward the men near the wall. "Morality is a luxury purchased by powerful men." Dominic straightened. "No. Morality is what power costs when a man finally decides to become human." Victor laughed quietly. "The waitress taught you that." "She reminded me." Victor lifted his glass. "Then she has made you weak." Dominic turned toward the exit. "She reminded me weakness is not the same as love." Outside, Cole stepped from the vehicle as Dominic crossed the yard. "How did it go?" "We are done here." Cole scanned the road. Victor does not agree. He does not have to. A dark sedan turned into the shipping yard. It moved too slowly. Cole's hand went beneath his jacket. "Get down." The passenger window lowered. 3 shots split the night. Dominic saw the flash. He shoved Cole behind the concrete barrier. The first bullet struck metal. The second entered Dominic's shoulder. The third hit beneath his ribs. For a moment he remained standing. Then his knees gave way. Cole drew his weapon and fired toward the departing sedan. Tires screamed against wet pavement. Dominic collapsed against the ground. Blood spread beneath his coat. Cole dropped beside him and pressed both hands against the wound. "Stay with me." Dominic tried to breathe. "Emma, do not talk. Get to Emma. Security is already there." Dominic gripped Cole's sleeve with surprising strength. They know. Who? Dominic's face lost color. Everyone knows. Emma woke before dawn to pounding against her apartment door. She reached for her phone. Cole's name was not on the screen. The pounding came again. Emma, open the door. It was one of the security officers stationed outside. Emma looked through the peephole. The man stood in the hallway with another officer. Both wore dark jackets. Both looked afraid. Emma opened the door. What happened? The officer entered. We need to move you. Why Dominic was shot? The words did not make sense. Emma stared at him. When? 2 hours ago. Is he alive? Yes. The answer came too quickly. Where was he shot? Shoulder and abdomen. He is in surgery. Emma grabbed the edge of the table. The room seemed to tilt beneath her. Victor, we do not know. I need to go to the hospital. No. Emma looked at him. We have orders to move you to a secure location. He was shot. And the people responsible may come for you next. Emma's hands shook as she pulled on a sweater. She took the box containing the broken blue bird without knowing why. The officers drove her to a house outside the city. It looked ordinary from the road. Inside, cameras covered every entrance. Metal shutters were hidden above the windows. 2 armed guards waited in the kitchen. Emma paced the living room. No one would tell her more than Dominic was still in surgery. At 9:15, Cole called. Emma answered before the first ring ended. How is he? The bullet in his shoulder passed through. The second caused internal bleeding. They repaired the damage. Is he awake? Not yet. I am going to the hospital. Emma, I am not asking. It is not secure. Then secure it. Cole was silent. Emma continued. The man I love was shot after I told him to stay away from me. I will not sit in this house while he wakes up alone. He will not be alone. You know what I mean. Cole exhaled. If I take you, you follow every instruction. Yes. You do not leave the floor. Yes. You do not argue with security. I am already arguing with security. Emma, I understand. They entered the hospital through a service corridor. Cole led her to a private floor guarded by men in dark suits. Evelyn stood outside the intensive care room. Her usual composure was gone. She embraced Emma before either of them spoke. He asked for you before they put him under. Emma closed her eyes. How bad is it? He will recover. Evelyn's voice broke on the final word. Emma looked through the glass. Dominic lay beneath white sheets surrounded by machines. Bandages covered his shoulder and abdomen. His face looked pale against the pillow. The man who had commanded every room he entered seemed suddenly smaller. Human. Emma entered. She sat beside the bed and took his hand. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then his fingers moved. Dominic's eyes opened slowly. He looked confused until he saw her. Emma. His voice was rough. I am here. You are safe. She pressed his hand against her cheek. You were shot twice and you are asking about me. His eyes closed. I knew they would try. You knew not tonight. Anger cut through her relief. You went to Victor. Dominic opened his eyes again. He threatened you. So you walked into a warehouse alone. Cole was near. That is not better. A faint trace of a smile touched his mouth. Emma's eyes filled with tears. This is not funny. No. The smile disappeared. I am sorry. For being shot. For everything. Emma sat back. Dominic watched her carefully. If you want to leave, I will arrange protection. Money. A new location for the cafe. Anything you need. She stared at him. You still think money is the answer? No. Then stop offering it every time you are afraid. Dominic looked toward the ceiling. I do not know what else to give you. The truth. He turned back toward her. All of it. Pain moved across his face as he shifted. Emma tightened her grip on his hand. I came because I love you, she said. That does not mean I forgive what you hid. It does not mean I know whether we can survive it. I understand. No, you need to listen. He became still. I am not your proof that you became good. I am not the reward waiting at the end of your confession. I know. You say that often. This time I mean it. Emma searched his face. The machines continued their steady rhythm around them. Then tell me everything. Over the next several hours, Dominic spoke whenever the medication allowed him to remain conscious. He gave her names, dates, accounts. He described contracts written to hide illegal money, officials who accepted bribes, property owners pressured into selling, families displaced because he needed higher returns. He did not call the harm necessary. He did not blame Victor. When Emma asked why he had continued after the first project, Dominic looked toward the darkened window, because each success made the last decision easier to defend. How many years? 7. And then, my mother's sister died. Emma waited. She lived in a building owned by one of Victor's companies. The heat failed during winter. Repairs were delayed because the property was scheduled for sale. Dominic's eyes remained on the window. She died before anyone fixed it. Emma felt the weight of the answer. That was when you decided to leave. That was when I stopped pretending I was different from him. Cole entered near evening. He carried a folder. We identified the vehicle. Dominic looked at him. Victor Nom Cole placed several photographs on the table. A middle-aged man appeared in one image outside the lantern. Emma recognized the name before Cole said it. Graham Holt. Dominic's expression changed. You know him? Emma asked. I knew his father. Cole opened the folder. Graham hired the shooters. We traced payments through a private security company. Where is he? Dominic asked. Gone. Cole looked at Emma. He has been watching both of you for months. Emma remembered Sarah's photographs. Why use Victor's message to make Dominic believe Victor ordered the attack? Graham wants them to destroy each other. Dominic pushed himself upright despite the pain. Find him. Cole's expression remained hard. We are trying. 2 days later, Victor Kane entered the hospital room alone. No guard announced him. No one stopped him. He wore a dark suit and carried no visible weapon. Emma stood beside the window. Dominic sat upright in bed, his injured arm supported by a sling. Victor looked from Dominic to Emma. So this is the woman. Emma did not move. Victor smiled faintly. She looks less frightened than the others. Dominic's voice hardened. Why are you here to correct an insult? Victor placed a photograph on the bed. Graham Holt stood beside a car outside a motel. You believed I sent men to kill you. I considered it. When I decide to kill you, Thomas would not be the name on your hospital chart. Dominic looked at the photograph. Where is he? Victor gave him an address. A motel near the Pennsylvania line. Emma watched Dominic. Victor continued. Graham has more men. He plans to strike the café. Dominic's fingers closed around the photograph. Victor looked pleased. There, I remember that face. What do you want? Dominic asked. Nothing. Victor adjusted one cuff. This is a gift between old friends. You do not give gifts. No. Victor's eyes moved to Emma. I offer opportunities. The meaning settled over the room. He expected Dominic to find Graham before the police did. He expected blood. Victor stepped closer to the bed. This is how men like us remain alive. Dominic looked toward Emma. Victor noticed. His smile sharpened. A waitress smiles at you once, and now you need permission to breathe. Emma walked toward him. No. Victor turned. He needs a reason to stop becoming you. For the first time, Victor's expression lost its amusement. He studied Emma in silence. Then he looked back at Dominic. If you choose the law will take your company, your freedom, and every illusion that woman has about you. Dominic's voice remained steady. Maybe it should. Victor nodded once. Then you finally understand the price. He left without another word. Cole entered moments later. We confirmed Graham is moving tonight. The motel is empty. He is heading back toward Baltimore. The lantern, Emma said. Cole nodded. Possibly. Dominic opened the drawer beside the hospital bed. Inside lay the pistol Cole had recovered from Pier 9. He picked it up with his uninjured hand. Emma reached into her bag. She removed a business card Evelyn had given her that morning. The name belonged to a federal prosecutor. Emma placed it beside the gun. Dominic looked at both objects. You can kill Graham, she said. Victor will understand that language. He will know you are still a man he can use. Dominic said nothing. Or you can give the government everything. The ledgers, the names, your own crimes. I could lose the company. Yes. I could go to prison. Yes. Victor may still come for you. Emma held his gaze. I am already in danger. Dominic looked toward the pistol. Emma placed her hand beside the prosecutor's card. Choose the man you want to be when this is over. His fingers loosened around the weapon. The pistol touched the hospital blanket with a soft, almost harmless sound. Dominic looked at the federal prosecutor's card beside it. For years he had believed every meaningful decision required force. Money when persuasion failed. Fear when money failed. Violence when fear lost its power. The card asked for something harder. It asked him to surrender control. Dominic picked it up. Call her, he said. Emma did not move at first. She searched his face looking for hesitation or calculation. There was fear in his eyes. She had never trusted him more. Cole took the pistol from the bed and cleared the chamber. I will contact the prosecutor, he said. But if Graham is moving toward the lantern, we still need to secure it. Emma reached for her coat. Dominic caught her wrist with his uninjured hand. No. She looked down at his fingers. You do not get to order me anymore. I am not ordering you. His grip softened. I am asking you not to walk into danger. The staff may still be there. Cole can handle the staff. The lantern is my responsibility. You are my responsibility. Emma pulled her wrist free. No. That is the mistake you keep making. Dominic's expression tightened. She stepped closer to the bed. You can love me. You can protect me when I ask. You can stand beside me. But I am not a building you own or a debt you can pay. The words settled between them. Dominic looked toward the city beyond the hospital window. Then he nodded. You are right. Cole checked his phone. The evening shift is leaving now. Security is moving everyone through the rear entrance. Emma looked at him. And the three men who came before, we identified two of them. Both are connected to Graham. Where is the third, we do not know. Dominic's attention sharpened. Emma stays with you. Cole met his gaze. She stays with me if she agrees. Emma looked from one man to the other. I am going to the lantern. Dominic closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, he no longer argued. Then take every officer on this floor. Cole shook his head. Half of them remain here. Dominic reached for the phone beside the bed. I can call more. Emma placed her hand over his. No more private armies. His gaze dropped to her hand. She continued. We call the police. We call the federal prosecutor. We tell them everything. Dominic looked at the card. Then he dialed. Assistant United States Attorney Rachel Monroe arrived at the hospital less than an hour later. She was a compact woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled into a low knot, and the patient expression of someone who had heard powerful men claim innocence many times. She brought 2 federal agents and a recorder. Dominic asked Emma to remain. Rachel looked at him. She may stay if you understand she can become a witness. I understand. Rachel placed the recorder on the table beside the hospital bed. Mr. Vale, before you say anything, you need an attorney. My attorney will tell me not to speak. That is likely. I am speaking anyway. Rachel studied him. Why now? Dominic looked at Emma. She held his gaze, but gave him no answer to borrow. He turned back to Rachel. Because a man tried to kill me. Another man threatened the woman I love. And every road leading to both of them begins with choices I made. Rachel pressed the record button. Start at the beginning. Dominic spoke for 3 hours. He named Victor Kane. He named city officials, contractors, union representatives, bankers, and shell companies. He described cash payments hidden inside construction invoices. He explained how distressed properties were pushed into default. He identified accounts used to move money in warehouses used for meetings. He also described his own crimes. He did not use the word mistake when he meant decision. He did not call himself young when he meant willing. Rachel interrupted only to clarify dates. When Dominic finished, the room felt smaller. Rachel closed her notebook. If these records support what you are saying, you have given us enough to reopen several investigations. They support it. Where are the ledgers? My penthouse, Cole said. Security can retrieve them. Rachel looked at Dominic. You understand cooperation does not erase your liability. Yes. You could lose your company. Yes. You could go to prison. Dominic glanced toward Emma. Yes. Rachel turned off the recorder. Then we begin tonight. At the lantern, rain gathered against the windows. The final employee left through the rear door under police escort. Emma stood inside with Cole and 2 federal agents while local officers searched the surrounding buildings. The cafe felt different with its chairs empty and lights dimmed. The brass service bell hung above the counter. The repaired quiet of the room reminded Emma of the harbor bell after closing. Cole approached. We should move you. I thought Graham might come here. He may. Then why leave because you are not bait? Emma looked toward the street. No. I am the person he thinks he can use. That is close enough. An officer called from the rear hallway. Cole turned. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A second later, the emergency lights flickered on. Red shadows stretched across the walls. Cole drew his weapon. Emma behind the counter. She moved. A crash sounded from the kitchen. 1 federal agent ran toward the rear corridor. The front door opened. 3 men entered. The largest wore the same black gloves Emma remembered from the night the Bluebird shattered. He locked the door. Cole aimed at him. Hands where I can see them. The man smiled. You brought the government. You brought a weapon into a room full of cameras. Cameras stop mattering when nobody leaves. 2 more men appeared through the kitchen entrance. The federal agent shouted. Gunfire cracked through the hallway. Cole shoved Emma behind the counter as glass burst from a hanging lamp. The largest man fired toward the ceiling, then grabbed Emma by the arm and dragged her upright. Cole stopped. The gun pressed beneath Emma's jaw. Drop it. Cole lowered his weapon slowly. The man pulled Emma toward the front windows. Outside, headlights swept across the rain. A black SUV stopped at the curb. Dominic stepped out. He wore dark trousers and a hospital shirt beneath an open coat. One arm rested in a sling. A white bandage showed beneath the collar. Emma's fear became anger. He should not have been there. Cole stared through the glass. Who let him leave the hospital? Dominic approached the locked door. 2 security officers followed, but he raised his good hand, ordering them to remain behind. The gunman pressed the weapon harder against Emma. Dominic stopped beneath the awning. Rain struck his face. The man shouted through the door. Was one smile worth starting a war? The scene felt impossibly familiar, though Emma had never lived it before. The empty cafe, the rain, the weapon. Dominic's fear reflected in the glass. He looked at her, not at the gun, not at Cole, only at her. "Yes," he said. The gunman smiled. Emma saw his finger tighten. She reached for the brass service bell. Her hand closed around its wooden base. She swung it backward with all the strength she had. The bell struck the gunman's wrist. The shot exploded. The bullet tore into the ceiling. Cole fired. The gunman fell against the front door. Dominic and his security team forced their way inside as the second attacker ran from the kitchen. He raised a weapon toward Emma. Dominic reached the fallen gun first. He lifted it. The attacker froze. For one terrible second, the old Dominic stood in the center of the lantern. His expression held no hesitation, no mercy. Victor Kane had taught him this language. Dominic understood every word. Emma watched his finger rest against the trigger. "Dominic." Her voice crossed the room. He looked at her. She did not tell him what to do. She did not need to. Dominic lowered the gun. "Call the police," he said. The attacker lunged. Cole struck him to the floor and restrained him. Sirens filled the street. Emma remained behind the counter, breathing too quickly. Dominic crossed the room. Blood had spread beneath the bandage near his abdomen. "You left the hospital. You came here." That was different. "No." He stopped in front of her. It was not. Emma looked at the blood. "You are hurt." "I was already hurt." She began to laugh. The sound was thin and unsteady. Dominic touched her face with his good hand. Then Emma pressed her forehead against his chest and finally allowed herself to shake. Federal agents arrested Graham Holt 2 hours later at a motel near the Pennsylvania border. One of the men captured at the lantern agreed to cooperate. His phone contained messages, photographs, and payment records connecting Graham to both attacks. Graham had spent years studying Dominic's enemies. He had used Victor's name because he knew Dominic would believe it. He wanted Dominic and Victor to turn on each other. He wanted the city to watch both men destroy themselves. Instead, the evidence led investigators in a different direction. Within 48 hours, federal agents searched 3 offices, 2 warehouses, and Victor Kane's home. The ledgers from Dominic's safe matched accounts under investigation for more than a decade. Victor was arrested before sunrise. Television cameras captured him leaving his estate in handcuffs. He did not lower his head. As officers placed him inside the vehicle, he looked directly toward the cameras and smiled. 3 days later, a handwritten note arrived at Dominic's hospital room. "You traded an empire for a clear conscience. Let us see which keeps you warm." Dominic read it once. Emma stood beside the window. "What does it say?" He handed her the note. She read it. Dominic took it back, held it over the sink, and touched a match to one corner. The flame moved across Victor's words until nothing remained but black ash. The investigation became public before Dominic left the hospital. News vans filled the street outside the lantern. Reporters waited near Emma's apartment. Vale Urban Development lost 2 major investors in a single morning. The company's board called an emergency meeting. 3 executives resigned. Construction on several projects stopped while federal agents reviewed the contracts. Customers arrived at the lantern for reasons that had nothing to do with coffee. Some came to support Emma. Others came to stare. A group gathered outside with signs accusing Dominic of hiding corruption behind community projects. One sign read that charity did not erase theft. Emma did not disagree. She opened the cafe every morning. She answered questions from staff. She refused requests from journalists who wanted private details about her relationship. One afternoon, a reporter blocked her near the front entrance. "Do you believe Dominic Vale is a good man?" Cameras turned toward her. Emma looked through the windows at the room she had helped build. Walter sat near the bookshelves. June drank coffee at her table. Sophie trained a new employee beside the register. Emma faced the reporter. He is a man who did harm. The crowd became quiet. What matters now is whether he accepts the cost of repairing it. The reporter tried to ask another question. Emma opened the door and returned to work. Dominic's attorneys met with federal prosecutors for weeks. They advised him to deny knowledge of several transactions. They suggested he blame Victor. They argued that records from his youth could be challenged. Dominic refused. Before the court froze his assets, he transferred his ownership interest in the Lantern into an independent community trust. Emma did not become the sole owner. She insisted the governing board include Marlene Walter, one elected employee, one neighborhood resident, and an independent financial advisor. Dominic signed the papers in his hospital room. "You could have kept control," Emma said. "That is exactly why I should not." The scandal nearly closed the Lantern anyway. Revenue fell. Vendors demanded advance payment. A bank suspended a credit line. Several employees left because they feared the cafe would be seized. Emma stood in the empty dining room one evening with unpaid invoices spread across the community table. Marlene sat opposite her. "You can walk away," Marlene said. Emma looked at the pages. "I know. You have proved what you can do. This is not about proving anything." "What is it about?" Emma looked toward the repaired blue bird on the counter. The pieces had been joined with thin lines of gold, keeping the right parts. Emma launched a community membership program. Customers paid a small monthly amount in exchange for coffee discounts and voting rights on community events. She published the Lantern's financial reports online. She created evening classes for young adults seeking restaurant and hospitality jobs. Walter organized used book sales. Marlene trained new staff. June convinced half her church group to hold meetings at the cafe. The work was slow. It was not glamorous. It kept the doors open. 6 months after the shooting, Dominic entered federal court. He wore a dark suit without the expensive watch he once checked every few minutes. Emma sat in the gallery beside Evelyn and Cole. Several victims of Dominic's early projects filled the benches behind the prosecutor. Sarah Holt sat among them. Graham had already accepted a plea agreement connected to attempted murder conspiracy and weapons charges. Victor Kane faced a separate federal trial. Dominic pleaded guilty to conspiracy, financial fraud, money laundering, and obstruction related to his early career. His cooperation led to a reduced sentence. It did not spare him. Before sentencing, victims were allowed to speak. A woman described losing the apartment where she had raised 3 children. A former shop owner spoke about watching his windows break after he refused to sell. Sarah stood before the judge with a photograph of her father. "My brother chose revenge," she said. "Mr. Vale chose profit. Both men decided our pain belonged to them." Dominic listened without looking away. Sarah continued, "I do not forgive him." Emma saw Dominic's hands tighten on the table. Sarah returned to her seat. Dominic did not ask for mercy when the judge allowed him to speak. He stood. "For years I called harm a necessary cost of progress." His voice remained steady. "I told myself that if I did not take the property, someone else would. If I did not accept the money, someone else would. If I did not make the decision, someone worse would." He looked toward the people seated behind him. "I used inevitability as permission." The courtroom remained silent. "I cannot return the years, homes, or businesses people lost. I can only stop lying about how I gained what I have." The judge sentenced Dominic to 3 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release and extensive financial restitution. Vale Urban Development would continue under independent leadership. Dominic would have no executive authority during the investigation or after his release without court approval. Emma cried when the sentence was announced, not because she believed it was unfair, because Dominic finally accepted a consequence he could not purchase his way around. Before officers led him away, he turned toward her. Emma touched 2 fingers to her lips. Dominic did the same. The first months were the hardest. Prison removed every tool Dominic had used to define himself. No private office, no driver, no locked room filled with men waiting for his decision. During their first visit, Emma barely recognized the tension in his shoulders. He sat across from her in a plain uniform beneath fluorescent lights. "How is the lantern?" he asked. "Alive. And you tired. You should hire another manager." "I did?" Dominic looked surprised. Emma smiled. "Her name is Sophie." He lowered his eyes. "You do not need me." The words were quiet. Emma leaned toward the glass. "I never needed you to run my life. I know." "No. You are still learning." He looked at her. "I chose you when you had money. I chose you when you lost it. But I am not waiting in the same place where you left me." Dominic absorbed the words. "What does that mean?" "It means I enrolled in school." A real smile appeared. "You did part-time. What are you studying? Business administration?" He laughed softly. "You could teach half the classes. I failed my first accounting test. Then perhaps not." Emma laughed with him. Their relationship changed through letters. Dominic wrote about the men he met inside. Some had committed violent crimes. Others had been destroyed by debt addiction or decisions made before they understood how long consequences could last. He began teaching a basic financial literacy class. At first, only 4 men attended. By the end of the year, the room was full. Emma wrote about the lantern. She told him about broken pipes, new employees, successful events, and nights when she wanted to close the doors and disappear. She did not hide difficulties to protect him. Dominic stopped offering solutions to every problem. He learned to ask what she had decided. In one letter he wrote, "I used to think loving you meant removing every hard thing from your path. Now I think it means respecting the life you build when I am not there." Emma replied, "You did not rescue me. You saw a door I could not see. I chose to walk through it." During the second year, the lantern became profitable again. Emma opened a second location in West Baltimore after months of meetings with residents. The community selected the site. Local businesses received priority in vendor contracts. Part of the building was reserved for job training and free evening classes. Marlene returned to Baltimore permanently to lead staff development. Walter created small libraries inside both cafés. June attended the opening and complained that her reserved table was too far from the window. Emma moved it. The repaired blue bird remained behind the original register. The gold lines across its body made the damage impossible to hide. Customers often asked why Emma had not replaced it. "Because it is still the same bird," she said, "just more honest." Dominic served 32 months before receiving release for good conduct and completion of required programs. On a gray spring morning, the prison gate opened. He walked outside carrying one canvas bag. No reporters waited. No black car stood near the road. Emma leaned against an ordinary blue sedan. Dominic stopped when he saw her. He looked thinner. Silver had spread further through his hair. The scar through his eyebrow remained. So did the careful way he observed the space around him. Yet something had changed. He no longer looked like a man preparing to control whatever approached. He looked ready to meet it. Emma smiled. The expression came without effort. Dominic laughed softly. "There it is." She walked toward him. "What?" "The thing that ruined my life. I thought it saved your life." He considered that. Both can be true. Emma wrapped her arms around him. Dominic held her carefully at first. Then the canvas bag dropped to the ground and he pulled her closer. That evening, Dominic entered the lantern after closing. He paused beneath the brass service bell. The cafe was warm with traces of the day. Student drawings covered one wall. Photographs from neighborhood events framed the reading corner. A board near the entrance listed grants awarded by the Business Support Fund. Dominic walked slowly through the room. He stopped before the repaired blue bird. "You fixed it." Emma stood behind the counter. "No." He looked at her. "I put the pieces back together." Fixed would mean pretending it never broke. Dominic touched one of the gold seams. "It is better. It is different." He nodded. "Yes." Dominic sat at the counter. For the first time since Emma had known him, he entered a place connected to his company without owning any part of it. She poured him a cup of coffee. He took a sip. His face tightened slightly. Emma raised one eyebrow. "Still terrible no." He looked around the room. "Just honest." Emma leaned against the counter. "What happens now?" Dominic placed both hands around the cup. "I start smaller. And us." He looked at her. "If you will have me, I start there too. No promises you cannot keep. No locked doors. No deciding what truth I can survive. No." Emma reached across the counter. Dominic took her hand. Outside, morning light began to rise over Baltimore Harbor. The city where Dominic had once believed power was the only protection awakened around a cafe he did not own beside a woman he could not control inside a life that demanded more courage than the one he had built through fear. The front door opened. The brass bell rang. June entered first, wrapped in her green coat. "You are late," she told Dominic. He looked at the clock. "It is 6 in the morning. I have been waiting 3 years." Walter followed with a box of books. Marlene entered behind him carrying fresh cinnamon rolls. Sophie turned on the espresso machine. The lantern filled with familiar voices. Emma squeezed Dominic's hand once before releasing it. Then she moved behind the counter and began taking orders. Dominic remained seated for a moment watching her. Emma glanced back. She smiled. This time he did not mistake the smile for salvation. He understood it as an invitation. Dominic rose from the counter, removed his coat, and carried a tray toward the waiting tables. The brass bell rang again as more people entered. Morning spread across the harbor. The lantern opened for another day.